At this time, point of our meeting, we've come to public commentary. So anybody who would like to make a comment, please step up to the microphone. Please state your name and address and comments, and keep to a 5-minute limit. Thank you.
Gerlon Grafton, 10 Blackbird Avenue.
How are you, Mr. Grafton?
I would like to address my comments specifically to Mr. Quinn and generally to the council. I was here a couple of meetings ago or whatever about a coyote problem in my backyard. Mr. Quinn told me that he would handle it. His handling it was sending me a letter telling me that it was my financial responsibility to take care of the problem. Therein lies my problem. Why should I have to assume financial responsibility for protecting the neighborhood? Excuse me. The coyote is a problem and a hazard to little children and pets, of which I have neither. So I am asking all of you to just think about it for a moment and perhaps give me an answer as to why I am supposed to assume financial responsibility for a neighborhood problem. Thank you.
Mr. Kraft, I understand your concern. We have a lot of wildlife throughout the township that causes issues with people on their personal property, which this is. We've had issues with squirrels and chimneys, raccoons.
Look, let me stop. Squirrels and chimneys are a nuisance. A coyote is a hazard. Two different things.
Has there been, we look at if there's any aggression or anything else, we conferred with the New Jersey Department of Wildlife. They were not concerned about it, or else they would have come out and removed it. And after our health department officer spoke with them that they would not be coming out to respond for it, you were provided with the information as to how we could have the coyote removed from your property if you wish to do so.
Okay, I'm going to leave because I've heard what I needed to hear that tells me what my next step is. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Kathy Wilson, 20 Beechwood Drive. I want to comment on a couple of things that came up at the last meeting. For anyone who didn't see it, that meeting will be broadcast in full this coming Monday evening, June 22nd, from 9 to 11:15 p.m. on Cablevision Channel 21. Tonight's meeting will begin broadcasting on June 29th and continue each Monday evening, 9 to 11 p.m. through the end of July. Two big things happened at last month's meeting. Mr. Quinn gave a very thorough 40-minute presentation on the budget. That was followed by a public hearing specifically pertaining to the budget. Also, the launch of televising these meetings began. During that meeting, I was struck by numerous examples of instances where different people had very different, even contradictory interpretations of the exact same situation and events. There's a name for this phenomenon. It's called the Rashomon effect. It's named after a famous Japanese movie in which 3 people participate in the exact same situation and go on to have 3 very different accounts of what happened. The Rashomon effect is worth knowing about because it helps explain what's going on when people see the exact same thing so differently. Some examples. In their commentary at the end of last month's meeting, I was stunned to hear Mrs. Johnson and Mr. Caffrey lament that the budget did not get the attention it deserved because in their view it got overshadowed by the launch of televised access. My interpretation was exactly the opposite. I was happy to see the budget get highlighted attention because so many more people than the 15 or so in attendance would have the opportunity to see it for themselves on TV. I strongly agree with Mr. Caffrey's assertion that the budget and people's property tax bills are of paramount importance to all residents. But I strongly disagree with his claim that the launch of televised access dwarfed the importance of these issues. To me, televising these issues has exactly the opposite effect. It magnifies the opportunity for residents to learn more about the very issues that are of such paramount importance to all. In his commentary at the end of last month's meeting, Mr. Sisler brought up the Honeywell situation and touted the action of holding 50 public hearings on this matter as an example of exemplary practice on the part of this committee. Since Mr. Sisler and others continue to bring up the Honeywell situation and repeat this claim, I'm going to take the opportunity tonight to answer it. I have a background in conflict resolution, and in my view, holding 50 public hearings on this matter is a great example of a common mistake that's made in working with highly contentious situations, namely, engaging the disputants in repeating the same intervention format and the same arguments over and over and expecting a different result. As the leader of the intervention process, this committee's best practice responsibility was to find ways to break this repetitive cycle, not perpetuate it. The most significant challenge here was how to address a key underlying issue that kept this situation locked in maddening circularity, namely a very real and very widespread perception among residents that the public hearings were like show trials. They meant nothing because the outcome had already been decided. The committee's decision to repeat the same public hearing process over and over again did nothing to address this most fundamental block. 10, 15, even 20 public hearings might be reasonable. After that, alternative interventions are needed. As many officials stated at the trial, Honeywell is a unique property. The township's approach to the resolution process was to provide a unique intervention on Honeywell's behalf. It rezoned the property and amended the master plan. The fatal flaw, in my view, was a failure to understand and act on the corresponding need for a unique intervention on behalf of residents. The fallout of the Honeywell situation continues to this day. Many see it as a major cause of a concern I know you share, namely Morris Township's reputation as being unfriendly to business. Blaming residents for Honeywell's departure, as Mr. Sisler did at a previous meeting, only perpetuates the anger and distrust that fueled this situation in the first place. Attempting to spin the 50 public hearing strategy as exemplary practice only feeds the perception among many who participated in that process that the committee was out of touch. The lesson of the Rashomon effect is that human beings see things differently. They always have, they always will. The question for us is how best to work with our differences going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Evening, sir.
Good evening. Pete Byron, 75 Mill Road, and here to address the Mill Road, Burnham Road intersection and the blinking light and the accidents that keep occurring. Last year, we had 6 accidents in the year, that's every other month, and this year we're right on target. The last accident, the car ended up on my front lawn, doing damage to the wall that the township had built on all 4 sides of that intersection. And I bring the problem back up. We need to do something about that intersection. I know that you talked about it at the last meeting, and unfortunately I was not able to attend, so I'm here today to state my claim and to open up for new studies, to amend the current study, to go to the state and impress upon them the importance of this. This is a public safety issue, and it's not, there hasn't been a solution yet, and I would like to see one.
Mr. Byron, as our police department and our engineering department look at these concerns every year. On average, we've had 5 or 6 accidents per year where you are. But you have to take into consideration 900,000 cars go through there a year. That's a considerable ratio for the number of accidents that we have compared to the number of vehicles that actually go through there. There are certain requirements that we are required to meet. It's called the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices. It's somewhat of the Bible of traffic control and what we have to do. We have to meet warrants that are identified there for different things like traffic signals, multi-way stops. It goes in further as to when you get into speed limits, sight distance issues, that kind of things. It's what the engineers have to do. Back in 2006, the state gave that responsibility to the municipalities. Prior to that, everything had to go before DOT, and it was a 2 to 3 year wait. However, the Township Committee cannot act without an engineering study that is based on the MUTCD. And unfortunately, the intersection of Mill and Burnham, the warrants for a multi-way stop or a traffic signal as you requested are not met or even come close to being met for that. As I said, there's 900,000 cars that come through there every year with 5 or 6 accidents. That's a relatively small ratio, and most of the accidents are minor accidents. They're not all, traffic, stop sign related. There are some where rear end when car stops for one, other ones side swipes when they're not paying attention, or a car runs off the road. So they're not all what we would call left angle, pulling out in front of another vehicle.
Are there any other intersections in the township that have that high an accident rate with that amount of traffic?
Yes, there is.
Can you tell me that?
Punchbowl Road and Madison Avenue, Columbia Road and Normandy Parkway. I would have to get you the other ones that the police department has, but there's a number of them that have much higher accident rate than Mill and Burnham.
And do they have lights?
Some do and some don't, or they have traffic signals and some have stop signs.
So even putting a 4-way stop at that intersection doesn't meet the regulations of your...
That is correct.
So there really isn't a solution.
We're going to change out the LED light on there, and the police department's also looking at make sure there's not any sight distance issues where we might have to change the parking on Burnham Road to address them. They've been asked to do that.
I can vouch for the fact that the visibility at that intersection, especially if there are cars parked on the west side of Burnham Road facing south, that should definitely be pushed back because you cannot see around that turn unless you creep out into the intersection.
That is what we've asked the police department to take a look at, sir.
Okay. All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Adam Barsimian, Leslie Wood. Mr. Mayor, it seems to me that after the November elections last year, a number of people from the Democratic Party have been excluded from the various township boards and committees. That is the impression I get. May I please get the statistics from the township clerk about the party affiliations of the various township committees and boards?
Sure, that information is available for you to obtain.
Thank you.
We don't track my party affiliation. We can give you the names of the folks that are there,
Yeah, okay.
and of course you can then look at
The
it.
appearance of
Sure.
complete,
Sure.
skewed membership. That's the reason I'm asking for it.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, and by the way, there are members, and you will see, once you get the list, there are members from both parties on a number of our boards and committees. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lee Goldberg, 10 Arrowhead Road. On the resolutions on tonight's agenda, the corrective action plan for the 2014 audit, is it correct to make the assumption that action plan has been completed, the corrective action plan, that the audit is complete and corrective actions have been identified?
Yes, they're both very, very minor.
Okay, and is that available if you wanted, if someone from the public wanted to review that, rather than have you go into detail here tonight? Is that just simply an Oprah request, or how would one learn what the deficiencies were? And, otherwise, if you would like to comment on what they were, that would be fine as well.
One has to do with interfund balances they were both.
Receivables balances, I think.
Right. First one dealt with interfund receivables and payables on the various general ledgers, just to make sure that they are balanced out at the end of the year. And the second one dealt with making sure that all of our grants that we've applied for, received, that they are closed out or carried with a reasonable explanation.
And that completes the corrective actions that are required.
That is correct.
Very successful audit, then, I would imagine, so that's good.
Yes, it was. Very
Yes,
good.
thank you. On Resolution 130-15, that was sort of called out and voted on separately. That, again, you know, it's hard to keep track from a resident's perspective on all the stuff that's going on with the pool. There's been a lot of bonds and payments and back and forth, but for this particular one, it's for a change order number 9 for an additional $55,000. And is that for, what, is that for a particular piece of equipment or something? It's a change order, so something changed, and what is the change
It's to
order?
meet the request that came in from Jersey Central for the electric supply.
For the electric supply. And because it's titled change order number 9, does that assume that there were 8 change orders prior to that preceded this?
Correct, there's been a number of minor ones that have taken place.
And those would also, if I were to look back at previous agendas, those would be reflected there as well and required separate votes?
They would all be in under one,
Under one? Okay.
most likely under one. Different items that were changed.
Okay, thank you. And regarding the comments that were made earlier by Ms. Wilson regarding the pool votes and such, having tracked it, I mean, my assessment on just how folks have voted on this, and we have a bit of a departure tonight. In the past, I believe Mr. Sisler has voted no on all of the bonding issues, but yes on actually voting for spending the money that other folks voted on, with the exception of tonight, which was the no vote for the spending of the money. So I will re-ask the question if Mr. Sisler would be willing to provide an answer as to why he votes no on the bonding issues, but actually yes on the spending. It seems to be, you know, sort of opposed in my mind, and just want to understand the rationale for that.
Thank you, Mr. Culver.
Is that implying that there will not be an answer?
Yeah, he's answered the question before, and that's
Okay.
been made public before, so we can...
All right, thank you. And also regarding the pool, because of the $400,000 that you referred to and the budget is being taken out of the general fund, is it correct to assume that now for the first time, because that money's coming out of the general fund, that sort of, I'm not a pool member, I have been in the past, but that I'm not a pool member now, is my tax style, that's sort of the general fund, so my portion of my taxes are now going towards paying for the pool, whereas in the past, they were sort of self-funded and funded by something other than taxes from individuals. Is that accurate? So this is the first time where my tax dollars,
There's been subsidy in previous years.
it has been subsidy in previous
Yes, sir.
years. Okay. And does that money then get paid, does the township then pay that money back, and then, can you just elaborate a little bit more on how that works?
It comes to maintain is primarily for debt service, and as you know, we had to do an emergency appropriation for the down payment last year. That had to be covered in this year's budget.
Thank you. A resident reported me an email that I guess went out to the pool members regarding the delays at Ginty and the new timeline for when it was going to reopen, and I believe that just went out to the members of the pool. I would like to request, I mean, in an effort of keeping up with the transparency and communication that this body has touted in the past, that a messenger be sent out to the rest of the community, because that, you know, sort of everyone's tax dollars are going towards us, and I think it would be only fair to communicate this via the messenger rather than just to the members of the pool.
We'll take it under consideration.
Thank you. My last question has to deal with an item off topic regarding the OEM, the Office of Emergency Management. I know in the past, Mr. Klein has done a lot of work and headed up that and been the coordinator for that. I just came to notice in looking at the township website that he no longer is the OEM coordinator. I guess that's an appointed position, right? So the decision was made not to reappoint Mr. Klein, or he was no longer interested in the position, and now it's been reassigned to someone else. Is that correct?
Several years ago.
Several years ago. Okay, so he hasn't been the OEM coordinator for several years.
That is correct.
Thank you very much. And the OEM that does the flower fundraisers, there's an association that does do the flower fundraising and the Valentine's Day sale and such. That's a nonprofit organization that's aside from the OEM itself, is that correct?
That is correct.
And as the OEM coordinator or liaison to the OEM, are they, as a nonprofit, are they required to file tax returns? And as being a nonprofit, are you aware of how that operates, or where did that money actually go? If you could explain where the money from the flower sales, how that gets fed back into the OEM?
You would have to ask them, they're a private entity, not be part of the township.
So if I were to reach out to you, you would be able to give me information on how to find that out or contact them? Okay, thank you very much.
Pamela Shelder, 14 Hilltop Circle. In reference to the Halloween half marathon, and as a resident of that community, I'm wondering what steps have been or will be taken not to impede our mobility during the day.
The marathon will take off in the morning. There will be traffic that you'll be able to get in and out of your neighborhood with the assistance of the police.
So it starts at 9 a.m.
9 to 11. Right.
9 a.m. And for the rest of the day, we'll need the help of the police.
No, because I believe you're at the beginning of the marathon, so everybody should be through there probably
Well, actually,
within.
we're a connecting street.
I'm sorry?
We're off of yeah.
Oh, you're in the beginning of the marathon, though.
I don't know. I'm just wondering how we're going to,
Right. As some of the other races that come out of Ginty Field and everything else, police
this is a
department,
much smaller community than Ginty Field.
you will have access through the police department to get in and out of your neighborhood if you need to do so.
Yeah.
As will
So
the emergency.
we will have the ability to get in and out of our
That is correct.
neighborhood. But we'll have to do that with the,
Assistance of the police.
With the assistance of
when
the
the
police.
majority of the people are coming from the beginning of the race.
and how long is this taking? When do you expect the race to end?
Well, the race probably won't end for about 3 to 4 hours until afterwards, but if you're at the beginning, all the runners will be through that area, and then you'll have access, unimpeded access.
Thank you.
Anyone further from the public?
Good evening. George Milken, Springbrook Road, Morris Township. At the last Township Committee meeting, Mr. Quinn, our Township Administrator, presented our 2015 budget. The maintenance of our AAA bond rating is very important. The state of New Jersey rating has been downgraded 7 or 8 times in recent years. Today's Star Ledger had on the front page a story of the downgrade in the credit rating of many of the universities and colleges in New Jersey. In these troubling financial times, it is a real credit to Mr. Quinn and the personnel of the township, and to you, the members of the Township Committee, for maintaining our AAA bond rating. As a taxpayer, it is greatly appreciated, and I'd like to congratulate you. In regard to some characterizations of statements of the Township Committee meetings that I've heard tonight and at previous meetings, I would think that listening to the comments of the Township Committee members should stand on their own and should not be reinterpreted. Words of effect, stun, touted, perception, distress, and spin do not help this township. I suggest that it would be better for the township that all residents just work together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Jeff Brazel, 1 Indian Head Road. A couple quick questions about items on the agenda. I'm sorry I didn't get up during the ordinance 20 to 15 with the sewer improvements, but just for clarification, there's no bonding that's involved there, it seems. It's just being paid basically cash, right?
That is correct.
Okay, very good. On the resolution for the sale of water, 12515 to Wharton, is that an additional sale of our water resources to them?
That is correct.
And how much of a surplus does SMC MUA believe that we have?
They have a significant, this is also to resolve a builder's remedy lawsuit that was brought in, and SMC MUA was brought into that suit because they had so much reserve water, and as a resolution to it, and in discussions with them, by selling off this excess water, it's going to help stabilize the rates for all of the residents of the 4 towns that use the SMC MUA.
Okay. And if the day comes that we ever need our water for ourselves, do we have the ability to get those rates back?
Certainly do.
We do. It's not forever lost.
No.
Okay, very good, thank you. And then the last resolution, 13315, regarding the agreement for the medical transport services, or emergency medical services. Is that just a mutual aid agreement, or are they taking over for our local guys on the east side of town?
No, that's a mutual aid agreement. If the Minutemen are unable to respond during daytime hours, they will respond.
Okay, very good. And one final comment, and I spoke to Mr. Johnson, who's a representative of SMUCA. My neighborhood has had brown water for a significant part of the day today because of issues up at the reservoir, and I understand what's happening, and I'm not complaining about that part. But there's been no communication from SMC MUA about why the water's been brown, if we are allowed to drink it, and all those kinds of things that people, residents would like to know. Haven't been communicated. So I just wanted to suggest, and I made the suggestion to Mr. Johnson, that SMC MUA have some kind of vehicle to notify residents in certain districts as these issues come up, because a lot of people are just in the dark about what's happening.
Okay. It may be on the website. I'll have to check, but I
Okay,
will follow.
Thank you.
very good, thank you.
Hello, James O'Reilly, 50 Independence Way. With regard to the new gate that's going to be put up at the back entrance to Honeywell, what is the name of the street?
Conroe.
What?
Conroe.
Con Road, that's right, Con Road. I think it's great that it's going to be put up. I think it's great that it's going to have, keep cars from going around. That is all an accomplishment. Now, is this the responsibility of the township or of New Jersey Transit?
To pay for it?
Well, paying for it, I understand that Rockefeller Brothers had something to do with that.
It
You
has
said
to
so last
be,
time.
it has to be approved by New Jersey Department of Transportation,
It has to be approved.
and the developer will be paying the cost of it.
And does the township have any responsibility involved in any of that?
No, sir, we do not.
Oh, okay. Because the only problem I see is that cars may not to be able to go through, but do you have any knowledge of whether people will be able to cross even though cars are blocked?
The pavement area and surrounding area is going to be completely blocked, so they would have to go.
No one will
over
be
the
able to
tracks.
get through.
They will not be able to get through unless they go down farther and hop the tracks, and then
Oh,
over
okay.
the center fence.
Yeah. Well, that's all very good. I'm just worried still about the ceasing of the signaling from the trains, the quieting, because I see it as a safety issue, even though I recognize the positive accomplishment in putting up the gates. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further inquiry from the public?
Move you close the public portion, Mr. Mayor.
Second?
Second.
Okay.